Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Please consider subscribing and check out our Patreon for more. Enjoy the video. Shadows danced across Carol's face as she drove down the darkened highway, the steady hum of the engine and the occasional whoosh of passing cars her only companions. Her knuckles tightened on the steering wheel, tension radiating through her shoulders. In the back seat, 5-year-old Robin dozed fitfully, strawberry blonde curls framing her cherubic face. Beside her, nestled in a second-hand car seat, 2-month-old George slept peacefully, blissfully unaware of the upheaval that had shaken their family to the core. Carol's thoughts drifted to happier times, to lazy Sunday mornings spent cuddling in bed with her husband Mark, the scent of fresh brewed coffee and sizzling bacon wafting from the kitchen. She could still feel the warmth of his strong arms around her, hear the rumble of his laughter as the kids piled in to join them, a tangle of limbs and giggles. But those mornings were gone forever, shattered by a patch of black ice and a semi-truck barreling down the wrong side of the road. Now, Carol was left to pick up the pieces, to find a way to keep her small family afloat in a world that suddenly seemed so much colder and crueler than before. She had taken the only job she could find on such short notice, a position as a roller skating waitress at the local drive-in diner. It was grueling work, long hours on her feet with meager tips, but it was a paycheck. And right now, that was all that mattered. As she pulled into the driveway of their modest ranch house, Carol let out a shaky breath. She cut the engine and sat for a moment, gathering her strength before reaching back to unbuckle Robin's seatbelt. The little girl stirred, blinking owlishly in the dim light. "Are we home, Mommy?" she mumbled, rubbing at her eyes with chubby fists. "Yeah, baby, we're home," Carol said softly, forcing a smile. "Let's get you and your brother inside and into bed, okay?" Robin nodded, clambering out of the car and waiting patiently as Carol scooped George into her arms. The infant mewled, rooting against her chest, and Carol felt a pang of guilt. She hadn't had time to pump at work, and her breasts ached with the need to feed him. But first, she had to get the kids settled. Inside, the house was dark and still, a far cry from the warmth and laughter that had once filled its walls. Carol flipped on the lights and carried George to the nursery, laying him gently in his crib. He fussed for a moment, then settled back into sleep, his rosebud mouth working in tiny suckling motions. Carol stood watching him, her heart swelling with a fierce, protective love. He looked so much like Mark. It wasn't fair that he would grow up without a father, that he would never know the kind of love and security that Mark had provided. But she would do her best to give him everything she could, to make sure he never wanted for anything. With a sigh, Carol turned to leave the room, only to find Robin hovering in the doorway, her bottom lip trembling. "Mommy," she whispered, her voice small and uncertain. "Is Daddy ever coming back?" Carol's heart clenched, and she gathered her daughter into her arms, holding her close. "No, sweetheart," she said, her voice cracking. "Daddy's not coming back. But he loved you so much, and he'll always be watching over us from heaven." Robin nodded, burying her face in Carol's shoulder as silent tears soaked into her shirt. Carol rocked her gently, murmuring soothing nonsense until the little girl's breathing evened out and she went limp with sleep. Carrying Robin to her room, Carol tucked her into bed and pressed a kiss to her forehead before slipping out and pulling the door closed behind her. She leaned against it for a moment, exhaustion washing over her in waves. But there was still so much to do. Bottles to wash, laundry to fold, bills to sort through and try to figure out how to pay. As she headed for the kitchen, a glint of metal caught her eye from the living room floor. Stooping to pick it up, Carol realized it was one of Robin's barrettes, a sparkly butterfly clip that must have fallen out during the day. She turned it over in her fingers, an idea beginning to take shape in her mind. Money was so tight, and Robin was growing like a weed. Every month it seemed she needed new clothes, new shoes, new everything. But George was still so little. He could wear Robin's hand-me-downs, the onesies and sleepers that she had long since outgrown. It would save so much money, stretch their meager budget that much further. But could she really do it? Dress her son as a girl? Let the world believe he was someone he wasn't? It seemed like such a betrayal, a denial of his very identity. And yet, what choice did she have? They were barely scraping by as it was. Something had to give. Mind made up, Carol squared her shoulders and marched into the nursery, pulling out the box of Robin's old clothes. She sorted through them quickly, setting aside anything too frilly or feminine. The rest she folded neatly, stacking them in George's dresser. From now on, George would be Jennifer, at least to the outside world. It was the only way to keep them afloat, to make sure they had food on the table and a roof over their heads. Carol knew it wouldn't be easy, that there would be questions and sideways glances and whispers behind hands. But she would do whatever it took to protect her children, to give them the best life she could. As dawn began to light the edges of the sky, Carol finally crawled into bed, her body aching and her mind whirling. She closed her eyes, but sleep wouldn't come, chased away by the gnawing fear in her gut. Was she doing the right thing? Would Mark have understood, have supported her decision? Or would he have been horrified, disgusted by the very idea? Carol didn't know, and the uncertainty ate at her, a cold knot in the pit of her stomach. But there was no going back now. She had made her choice, for better or for worse. Jennifer's first day at her new school was a blur of nerves and forced smiles, of too tight pigtails and itchy tights under a hand-me-down dress. Carol held her breath as she walked her into the classroom, waiting for someone to call her out, to point and stare and demand to know what she thought she was doing. But no one did. The teacher greeted them with a warm smile, ushering Jennifer to a seat at a table with 3 other little girls. They looked her up and down, taking in her scuffed Mary Janes and the fraying hem of her dress, but said nothing. Carol let out a sigh of relief. As the day wore on, Jennifer seemed to settle in, coloring and playing with the other children. But Carol could see the confusion in her eyes, the way she tugged at her dress and frowned when the other girls called her by her new name. It broke Carol's heart, but she steeled herself against the guilt. This was for the best, she told herself firmly. It had to be. Weeks turned into months, and slowly Jennifer seemed to adjust to her new identity. She stopped frowning when people called her by the wrong name, started to answer to it as if it had always been hers. But there were still moments when Carol caught a glimpse of the little boy she had once been, a flash of mischief in her eyes or a roughness to her play that set her apart from the other girls. Carol did her best to smooth over those moments, to redirect and distract and keep up the charade. But it was exhausting, a constant tightrope walk of lies and half-truths. She found herself snapping at the kids more often, her temper fraying under the strain of working long hours and keeping up appearances. As the years passed, Jennifer grew into a confident, outgoing teenager, her natural charisma and quick wit drawing others to her like moths to a flame. She had a tight-knit group of friends, girls who had known her since elementary school and accepted her without question. They had sleepovers and movie nights, giggling over boys and swapping makeup tips late into the night. It was at one of these slumber parties that Jennifer's carefully constructed world came crashing down around her. The girls were playing Truth or Dare, a silly game that had always seemed harmless enough. But when it was Gloria's turn, she fixed Jennifer with a calculating stare, a glint of something almost malicious in her eyes. "Truth or dare, Jen?" she asked, her voice sickly sweet. Jennifer hesitated for a moment, a sinking feeling in her gut. But she couldn't back down, not in front of her friends. "Dare," she said, lifting her chin defiantly. Gloria's smile widened and she leaned in close, her breath hot against Jennifer's ear. "I dare you," she whispered, "to show us what's really under that pretty little skirt of yours." Jennifer's blood ran cold, her heart hammering against her ribs. She could feel the other girl's eyes on her, curious and expectant. For a moment, she considered running, fleeing the room and never looking back. But something stopped her, a flicker of defiance sparking to life in her chest. She stood up slowly, her hands shaking as she reached for the hem of her skirt. With a deep breath, she lifted it, revealing the telltale bulge that she had always been so careful to hide. The room was silent for a long moment, the girls staring at her in shock and confusion. Jennifer braced herself for the worst, for the disgust and rejection that she was sure would follow. But it never came. Instead, her best friend Sarah stood up, crossing the room to wrap her in a fierce hug. "Oh, Jen," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "Why didn't you tell us?" She felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, a rush of relief and gratitude washing over her. Never expected to get any form of support. Jennifer felt a rush of emotion as her friends gathered around her, their faces full of love and understanding. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she let herself be enveloped in their embrace, the weight of her secret finally lifting from her shoulders. "I was so scared," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I thought you'd all hate me if you knew the truth." Sarah pulled back, looking her square in the eye. "Jen, we could never hate you. You're our friend no matter what, and we'll always have your back no matter what anyone else says." In the days and weeks that followed, word of Jennifer's secret spread through the school like wildfire. Most people were surprisingly supportive, offering kind words and gestures of solidarity. But there were a few who couldn't seem to wrap their heads around it, who whispered behind her back and gave her strange looks in the hallways. To her surprise, she found that she had a natural talent for acting, a way of inhabiting a character that made her feel truly alive. When she was on stage, she could forget about the whispers and the stares, could lose herself in the story and the emotions of the moment. As high school drew to a close, Jennifer knew that she wanted to pursue acting as a career. She applied to every drama program she could find, pouring her heart and soul into each audition. When the acceptance letters started rolling in, she could hardly believe it. She had done it. She was going to be an actress, just like she had always dreamed. But even as she celebrated her success, Jennifer knew that she had one more hurdle to overcome. With trembling hands, she made the appointment with a renowned gender confirmation surgeon in Los Angeles. She knew it would be a long and difficult road, with months of recovery and physical therapy ahead of her. But she also knew that it was the only way she could truly be herself, inside and out. The surgery was grueling, the pain unlike anything Jennifer had ever experienced. But as she lay in her hospital bed, groggy from the anesthesia, she felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had done it. She was finally the woman she had always known herself to be. As she healed and regained her strength, Jennifer threw herself into her acting career with renewed vigor. She landed her first big role just a few months after the surgery, playing a young transgender woman in an indie film that garnered critical acclaim on the festival circuit. From there, her star only continued to rise. She took on challenging, groundbreaking roles, playing complex characters that showcased her range and depth as an actress. And with each new project, she felt a sense of purpose and fulfillment that she had never known before. But even as her career soared, Jennifer knew that something was still missing from her life. She had love and support from her friends and family, but she longed for a partner to share her life with, someone who would understand and accept her for who she truly was. Jennifer met Lainey on the set of her latest film, a gritty drama about a group of friends navigating the ups and downs of life in Los Angeles. Lainey was playing Jennifer's love interest, a free-spirited artist with a heart of gold. From the moment they met, there was an undeniable chemistry between them. They fell into an easy rhythm, bantering back and forth between takes and spending long hours rehearsing their scenes together. As the weeks went on, their on-screen romance began to bleed into real life. They started spending more and more time together off-set, grabbing coffee and exploring the city in their downtime. Jennifer was hesitant at first, still guarded after years of hiding her true self. But Lainey had a way of putting her at ease, of making her feel seen and accepted in a way she never had before. One night, after a particularly emotional scene, they found themselves alone in Lainey's trailer. The air was thick with tension, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. Finally, Lainey took a step forward, her eyes locked on Jennifer's. "I can't stop thinking about you," she whispered, her voice low and rough with desire. Jennifer's heart raced as Lainey closed the distance between them, their lips meeting in a searing kiss. It was electric, a rush of heat and passion that left her breathless and aching for more. From that moment on, they were inseparable. They spent every waking moment together, stealing kisses between takes and sneaking off to Lainey's apartment whenever they could. As their relationship deepened, Jennifer began to open up to Lainey in a way she never had before. She told her about her childhood, about the years of hiding and shame and fear. And Lainey listened, holding her close and whispering words of love and acceptance. Their chemistry on screen was palpable, and soon the media began to take notice. Rumors swirled about their relationship, paparazzi following them everywhere they went. At first, Jennifer was terrified of the attention. She had spent so long hiding who she was, the thought of the whole world knowing her secret made her stomach churn. But Lainey was there every step of the way, holding her hand and reminding her of how far she had come. "You're the bravest person I know," she would whisper, pressing soft kisses to Jennifer's forehead. As the months went on, Jennifer and Lainey's relationship only grew stronger. They moved in together, spending lazy mornings tangled in each other's arms and late nights talking about their hopes and dreams for the future. And when awards season rolled around, they were the talk of the town. They walked the red carpet hand in hand, stunning in matching gowns and beaming with love and pride. As they posed for photos, Jennifer felt a sense of peace wash over her. For so long, she had been afraid to be herself, to let the world see who she really was. But with Lainey by her side, she felt invincible. In interviews, they gushed about each other, their love and admiration for one another clear in every word. They became a symbol for trans and crossdressers. And when Jennifer won her first Oscar for her powerful portrayal of a transgender woman fighting for her rights, Lainey was right there beside her, tears streaming down her face as she watched her love take the stage. In her acceptance speech, Jennifer spoke about her journey, about the years of pain and struggle that had led her to this moment. And she thanked Lainey, her voice breaking with emotion as she spoke of the love and support that had carried her through. As they left the stage hand in hand, Jennifer felt a sense of joy and gratitude wash over her. She had found her soulmate, the love of her life, and together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that they had each other to lean on. In the years that followed, Jennifer and Lainey's love only grew deeper and stronger. They worked together on a string of critically acclaimed films, their on-screen chemistry translating into box office gold. Off-screen, they were the ultimate power couple, attending glamorous events and rubbing elbows with the biggest names in Hollywood. But through it all, they remained grounded and true to themselves, never losing sight of what really mattered. When they finally tied the knot, in a beautiful ceremony surrounded by their loved ones, it was a celebration of not just their love, but of the journey that had brought them together. As Jennifer stood at the altar, looking into Lainey's eyes, she felt a sense of peace and happiness that she had never known before. She had found her home, her safe haven in a world that had once seemed so dark and lonely. And as they exchanged their vows, promising to love and cherish each other for the rest of their lives, Jennifer knew that she had finally found her happily ever after. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out Patreon for a lot more content and early access to YouTube videos.